Last-minute shake-up at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. Is okay with
And staying in front of the day isn't always as
Nice,
simple
Ryan.
as 1,
What's
2,
up?
3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
You're listening to the NASM-CPT Podcast with Rick Richey, winner of the Share Care Emmy Award for Social Storytelling and the official podcast of the National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Hey y'all, and welcome to the NASM-CPT Podcast. My name is Rick Richey, and today I'm asking the question, when to give up on corrective exercise? And that one's a little bit tricky because sometimes it just seems like people aren't getting better. I've got a client that can barely put his arms over his head, and I've trained him for a while, and he can still barely put his arms straight over his head. What's wrong with you? You're making me look bad. Well, what about people whose feet still turn out when they squat? After all we've been through, all we've done, the feet still turn out. The back still arches at depth. The hips still shift to the left or the right. The shoulders are still shrugging. Well, first of all, I'm going to say this, that the first thing you need to do is if you can cue them out of the compensation, you got to be cueing. You got to be cueing. And I think the shoulder shrug is probably one that you can easily cue out of because that's just kind of a practice. Generally, also some instability around the scapula. We tend to shrug because the upper traps tend to be stronger than the other component muscles around the scapula. And so if I don't work the other components, just the one that's already big and muscular, we'll just keep doing. Also, stress is associated with this and how much we shrug our shoulders or temperature, right? It gets cold, we're going to shrug a lot more. But the second is, I'm going to cue you, but now I want you to follow the system of corrective exercise. And the first one being to inhibit the short, tighter, overactive muscles. So we do inhibition generally through things like foam rollers. You can do it through massage. You can do it with those hooks and the different tools and modalities that we have to inhibit muscles, putting ischemic pressure into a muscle, kind of pressing into it, holding it, sensitive areas and short, tight, overactive muscles, and just relax. Just relax. Let that take place. Now, the guy that I have that put his arms over his head barely, when we foam roll his lats, he basically is in tears. He's very, very sensitive to that. Now, it indicates to me that there is a lot of tightness in what we've already identified as a very tight muscle. It doesn't mean that just because it hurts means it's tight. That's not the same thing. But when the muscles can't relax and they are staying tense, you get them to relax, it can be painful, and we want the muscles to relax while there's tension there. Well, sometimes people love just to do the first one and then not do the second one, or do the second one and not the first one. The second one is stretch. All those muscles that you just foam rolled, now it's going to be good to stretch those muscles. We're going to statically stretch them. We static stretch because static stretching is a type of corrective flexibility. And in corrective flexibility, we're trying to fix something. So static stretching is a form of corrective flexibility. In fact, static stretching is not under any other type of flexibility, which means if you're not trying to correct something, then you probably don't have to statically stretch it. Static stretching is for the purpose of giving length to muscles that don't have enough. And there are other things that you can do in addition to that. So I've got my inhibiting and my stretching, but sometimes you can do things like self-administered mobilizations, trying to get the joints to move a little bit better and smoother. And those things make absolute sense. So we're not just focusing on flexibility, but we're working on mobility as well. But inhibiting a muscle prior to going into self-administered joint mobs is also highly indicated. So the foam rolling is good, the stretching is good, the mobilizations are good. And a lot of times we'll go through this list and you'll pick one or two of those, but you won't do them all. And then we'll say, okay, well, now we're done. Let's go lift. But we didn't do any of the strengthening. And I think this is where even physical therapists oftentimes will love doing hands-on, let's release short, tight, overactive muscles. But if you don't do strengthening for the weak and underactive muscles that are helping to lead to the tightness of those muscles, if we don't do anything to strengthen the underactive muscles, then the muscle that you just did a release to is going to go right back to what it was doing before. So we need to change the environment of tightness. And so the environment of tightness is because there's likely a weakness somewhere around there. And the regional interdependence theory also says that it's not necessarily at the same joint. It could be joint above or a joint below, not just the joint where there is tightness. So we want to look at creating strength to the short, to the underactive muscles, the weaker muscles that are surrounding those tight muscles. And then we say, okay, great, now let's go work out. No, because there's another component when it comes to the NASM corrective exercise continuum, and that is integrating it back into movement patterns. So we're not going into big strength training lifts. We're trying to get those newly released and stretched out tight muscles and the newly strengthened underactive muscles to work together in movement patterns. So there's some neuromuscular re-education that's going on here to work on the pattern of movement and reintegrate them together before we even start adding on weight and doing resistance training. I think there's an important part that we have to ensure we don't overlook, which is we like to skip around. We like to pick our favorite ones. And we have research that shows that every single one of these helps. And the problem is it's hard to research a system because in a system, there are a lot of variables. But what we do at NASM is we say, well, we take this and this works, the inhibiting. We know that the lengthening of a muscle works to give it increased range of motion. We know that the strengthening of the underactive muscles work in order to increase range of motion and to help stabilize a joint. And we know that working the neuromuscular re-education is also beneficial. Let's do it all. Let's do it all. Let's take all the things that work and put it together instead of picking your favorite one. Because one might work much better for one individual than another. But when you run through the system, then you take care and hit the highlight reel. So it doesn't matter which one works best. We're still doing every component and we're trying to make the outcomes better. And I know that there's still some issues with that. So what, Rick, if I go through all this and I've been training somebody for a while and it doesn't get fixed, it's not better, then I'm going to say go back to the drawing board first. First is go back to the drawing board and reevaluate, reassess, and re-implement. Because I find that even if it's been a long time, it doesn't get better. Even in the short term, it should be better short term. It should be better post-implementation. Now, it may not fix the problem, but immediately the squats should start to look and feel better. The overhead reach should start to look and feel better. The range of motions are getting better just through the initial implementation. But then there's the follow-up question. I did all that and it still ain't working. What do I do? Well, I'll tell you that after we do this. This episode of the NASM-CPT Podcast is brought to you by NASM One, the membership for trainers and coaches. Enjoy, as a member, unlimited access to hundreds of career resources. Get the Edge app to schedule and program clients. Enjoy half off all certifications and specializations, access to free CEUs, and more. All of this for just $35 a month. Go to nasm.org/membership to learn more about NASM One. Well, I will say that if you've got somebody, even if it doesn't hurt them, so the limit in range of motion isn't causing them pain, you may want to send them to a licensed movement professional or even to a medical physician just to rule out and see if there are any underlying conditions. Now, those are things I don't know, because I know that there are a lot of things that can lead to tight muscles between dehydration, but stress, injuries that may be resolved, but not resolved in the best way. And then medications that you're taking that could lead to tightness. There could be a number of things. And so just getting checked out, if you are at that point where you're like, hey, I can't raise my arms over my head, I can't straighten them out, my back is constantly arched and I have pain, you need to be referred out to somebody beyond the scope that a personal trainer has. So going to maybe initial consult with your physician to get clearance to go to physical therapy, to see an osteopath, something like that. This is going to have a lot more movement related insight than personal trainers have. Now, sometimes muscles get tight and they get stuck. So what now? Well, you have to do a warm up for movement prep anyway. So I still feel that it's best to foam roll and stretch overly tight muscles and exercise the weak muscles as preparation, because you got to do a warm up anyway. Might as well do the warm up that's going to allow more immediate, even if it is short term, increase in range of motion, and to calm down some of those overly tight muscles and to get some of those underactive muscles a bit more engaged. Now, let's say they won't create much, it's not going to get a lot of change in 5 to 10 minute warm up, and that's not going to get a lot of change in 1 to 2 times per week. So if I do 5 to 10 minute warm up 2 times a week, let's just say that I'll do the highest number of both of those, 10-minute warm up before a training session twice a week. That's 20 minutes out of a week, out of 168 hours. So what do you need to do? You need to make sure that they're doing their homework. We give this to you. I tell people that personal training is one of the reasons I like to say, personal training can be expensive, but so can college. And I don't think you go to college for what you get out of college in the moment. It's for what you get out of college when you leave. And that's what I think personal training is. I want you to come here and I need you to learn something so you can go back home and do some of that. Don't just come and pay me for the hour we're here and then go home. Like, go home and do the work if you want to get better, if you want to address some of these issues with tightness, with weakness. We have to have homework for them. So now you can't make them do their homework, but you can make it easier for them to choose to do their homework. So the number one thing is write it down for them. Don't give them a lot. Just a few exercises that are going to help to increase movement. And if they're going to tell you, I'm never going to foam roll when I'm at home, or I'm never going to stretch, but they might foam roll and do some mobility exercises like some cat-cow and some scaptions. So, okay, great. Let me give you what I already know you are going to agree to do, because if I give you a bunch of stuff you're never going to do, then I'm never going to get you to do it ever. So let me do what you will do before I start pushing you more into the things that you won't do yet. You might still do them, and we're going to encourage that. And I'm going to say that if people want to make change, then they got to work. They got to work hard to make changes happen sometimes. Now, I'm not saying work to the point that it hurts, but I'm also not saying that it's easy. And if your feet are turning out and we need to address that, then let's address that through as many means as possible. And we can do a lot of things that address that, but things like the low back arching, that can lead to a lot of pain in the low back, can lead to a lot of unnecessary compression in the low back. There are things that we need to do to get them to work harder, and we can support them in their process. Let's write some stuff down. Let's find out from them what is the best time of day that would make sense for you to do this 5 minutes of movement that's going to help you feel and function better throughout your day. When can you implement that? And then text them. Just, a few days a week, just say, hey, I know you said that you'd do this at 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:05. I sent my client after our warm up to go get some water, and I'm texting you right now real quick, just making sure you're doing your work. So send yourself little reminders to send them reminders that they told you they were going to do what they said they're going to do. Ask those questions. And then when they tell you that they've done any of it, be excited. Be excited, because that's going to make them even more happy to tell you again next time, because we celebrate even the smallest win. Let's celebrate that with them and get them involved in their own progress. And if it doesn't work after much effort, doesn't work after much, a lot of, energy put into it, and they don't have pain, you can switch up your warm-ups for variety's sake, but addressing movement quality should never be given up. We should never leave movement quality to the side. Movement quality should always be paramount, and we need to make sure that we include that in what it is that we do. All right, y'all, thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, share with your fitness friends and family. And if you want to reach out to me, you can hit me up on Instagram at dr.rickrichey or email me rick.richey@nasm.org. Y'all keep inspiring people to fitness. Thanks for listening. This has been the NASM CPT Podcast.